The storm rages outside, but inside the quiet cabin, Sam's life is about to change forever. A girl, pale and broken, stands at his doorstep, cold, wounded, and unlike anything he's ever seen. Her blood is blue, her veins glow with unnatural lines, and she claims she's being hunted. Sam doesn't know who she is or what she's running from, but one thing is clear: he can't turn his back on her. As the storm clears, the danger escalates. They're not alone. Someone, or something, will stop at nothing to find her, and Sam's choice will decide whether they live and or become the next target. Will they survive the chase, or will the shadows of the past catch up to them? Stay tuned. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. It was a cold and stormy night in the deep forest. The rain poured down relentlessly, hitting the roof of the cabin like tiny hammers. The wind howled through the trees, making the old wooden walls creak and groan as if they were alive. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering shadows across the room. Sam Rayburn sat in his worn armchair, a mug of steaming coffee in his hand. The only sounds that filled the space were the storm outside and the soft crackle of the fire. Sam had long ago given up on the world outside. He had left everything behind after the war, the memories, the people, the chaos. Now, it was just him in the forest, a quiet life he had chosen for its peace. No noise, no people, no trouble. It was the perfect way to forget. Or so he thought. As Sam took another sip of his coffee, he heard something unusual, a knock. It was faint but unmistakable. 3 knocks at the door, slow and deliberate. Sam froze. No one came out here, not in this kind of weather, not this late at night. Sam set his mug down gently on the table, his fingers brushing the rifle that leaned against the wall nearby. He had kept it close ever since the war. A habit, he told himself. But deep down, he knew he never let his guard down, not even in this quiet place. The knocking came again, softer this time. The sound seemed to fade away with the wind, leaving only the storm in its place. But Sam could still hear it echoing in his mind. He stood slowly, his eyes scanning the room, trying to make sense of what was happening. There was something unsettling about it, something that made him feel on edge. He walked toward the door, rifle in hand, holding it low to the ground. He paused just before opening the door, his hand resting on the cold brass handle. Was it some traveler lost in the storm? Or perhaps someone looking for shelter? Sam didn't know, but his instincts told him something was off. With a creak, he swung the door open, stepping into the cold, wet night. His boots sank into the mud, the rain soaking his jacket almost instantly. And there, standing in the downpour, was a girl. She couldn't have been more than 20, her dark hair sticking to her face, her eyes wide and strange, glowing faintly in the darkness. Her skin was unnaturally pale, almost gray, and she was barefoot, standing in the rain like it didn't affect her at all. She wore a torn jacket, soaked through, and her hands were dripping water, leaving a trail on the ground. Sam stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. His first instinct was to send her away. He didn't trust anyone, especially not out here, not in the middle of a storm. But then she spoke. "I'm sorry. Please." Her voice was weak, barely audible over the howling wind. Sam could barely make out her words, but there was something in her tone, fear, desperation, that made him hesitate. Before Sam could respond, the girl collapsed in front of him. She crumpled to the ground like a rag doll, her body limp and cold. Sam rushed to catch her, his heart pounding in his chest. She was freezing, too cold to be normal, her breath shallow and labored. Sam moved quickly, carrying her inside the cabin, away from the storm. He laid her gently on the couch, her body shivering violently, the cold radiating from her skin. He wrapped her in a blanket, trying to warm her up, but something felt wrong. Something was off about this girl. He reached for his medical kit, his hands shaking. He had seen plenty of strange things during the war, but this was different. This was something he didn't understand. He rolled up the sleeve of her jacket, intending to check for wounds, But when he saw her skin beneath, he froze. Where a normal person would have veins, she had something else. Thin, glowing lines running under her skin like wires. Not human. Not normal. Sam pulled back, his mind racing. What was she? A machine? A weapon? He wasn't sure, but one thing was clear. She wasn't like anyone he had ever encountered. He sat back in his chair, his rifle still in his hand, but his gaze fixed on the girl. She wasn't just sick. She wasn't just lost. There was something, more to her, something Sam couldn't explain. Hours passed, the storm raged on outside, but inside the cabin the silence was suffocating. Sam couldn't stop staring at the girl, at her strange glowing lines, at the way she seemed to be made of something, not quite human. She looked so fragile, so vulnerable, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her than met the eye. When she stirred again, Sam was ready. His heart skipped a beat as her eyes fluttered open. The glow in them was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. She blinked slowly, her gaze locking onto Sam's. "You're not with them," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. Sam frowned, confused. "With who?" The girl tried to sit up, but her body shook with the effort. "They'll come," she said, her voice filled with a mix of fear and resignation. "They always come." Sam felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't know who they were, but the fear in her eyes was enough to make him wonder just how dangerous her situation really was. The girl's name, she said, was Luna. But that was all she could say before her body fell back against the couch, her breathing shallow again. Sam sat there for a long time watching her, listening to the storm rage outside. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was caught up in something much bigger than himself. What had happened to this girl? Why was she here, and who was hunting her? The answers weren't clear, but Sam knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let her die on his porch. The storm had finally passed. Outside, the wind had died down, leaving a quiet calm that seemed to stretch on forever. Inside the cabin, the only sound was the occasional crackle from the dying fire in the hearth. Sam sat in his chair, his eyes never leaving the girl on the couch. Her name was Luna, he now knew, but she wasn't human. Sam had seen things during the war that had shaken him to his core, but nothing like this. Her blood wasn't red. It was blue, and her skin wasn't like anything he had seen before. Underneath, strange glowing lines ran through her body like veins, but they weren't normal. It made her look like something else, something not human. As the hours passed, Sam found himself sitting by her side. He had done what he could to help her, cleaning her wounds, wrapping her in blankets, and trying to warm her up. But the questions kept coming. What was she? Why was she here? And most importantly, who was hunting her? Sam's hands shook slightly as he reached for the coffee mug he had left on the table. He needed something to keep his mind steady, something to ground him, but the questions, the uncertainty still swirled in his head. Luna shifted on the couch, her eyelids fluttering. Sam leaned forward, watching her closely. Slowly, her eyes opened, the faint glow still lingering in them. She looked around, confused, her gaze landing on Sam. For a moment, there was no recognition in her eyes, only the same confusion and fear that had been there before. "You're awake," Sam said softly, his voice hesitant, unsure of what to say. Luna's eyes locked onto his. There was something different in them now, something more human. Her voice was weak, like she hadn't used it in years. "I didn't mean to come here," she said, her voice trembling. "I was running on from them." Sam's brow furrowed. "Who are you running from?" he asked. He didn't expect an answer, but the girl Luna seemed to sense the sincerity in his voice. She didn't look away, didn't try to hide the fear in her eyes. "The ones who made me," she whispered, her voice almost drowned out by the crackling of the fire. "The ones who created me." Sam stayed silent, letting her speak when she was ready. There was something in her tone that made him feel a strange sense of empathy. He knew what it was like to be hunted, to be a part of something bigger than himself and be helpless in the face of it. It was a feeling he had buried deep within, but hearing her speak about it brought everything rushing back. Luna shifted again, her hands trembling as she pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Sam noticed that her skin, the strange patterns running beneath it, was healing rapidly. The wounds that had looked so deep were now barely visible, fading as though time itself was erasing them. It was unnerving to watch. No human could heal like this. "Who did this to you?" Sam asked, his voice soft but filled with curiosity. He couldn't help it. He had to know more. Luna looked at him, her eyes flickering as if she were trying to decide how much to reveal. "I was made," she said slowly. "Not like you. I'm a hybrid, a machine, but not a machine. I was created to look like a human, to act like one. But inside, I'm not like you. I was trained to do things I couldn't do." Sam leaned forward, his hand resting on the edge of the table. "What kind of things?" Luna closed her eyes, her expression pained. "I was made to infiltrate, to destroy, and to take lives." She paused as if the weight of her words was too much to bear. "I was made to kill." Sam's heart tightened. This was no ordinary person. This was something more. Something that had been created, manipulated, and used for a purpose. He felt a wave of guilt wash over him. He had heard stories of synthetic beings like Luna, machines designed to look and act human, created for war. But he had never seen one up close. And he never imagined one would stand before him. So fragile. So human in a way. "You didn't kill, did you?" Sam asked, his voice quiet. Luna shook her head, her eyes cast down to her hands. "I couldn't. I saw the fear in his eyes. The human I was supposed to kill. He was just afraid. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't holding a weapon. I couldn't do it." Sam's heart softened. He had been a soldier, and he knew that sometimes the hardest choice was to walk away when everything in you screamed to fight. It seemed that Luna, this being who wasn't fully human, had made the choice not to kill. And in that moment, Sam realized something. Luna wasn't just some machine. She was something more. She was a person, with choices, with fears, and with hopes. "They sent you to kill someone, but you couldn't do it," Sam murmured. "And now you're running." Luna nodded slowly, her eyes staring into the fire. "I ran, I had to. I couldn't go back. I couldn't be what they wanted me to be." Sam sat back, his mind racing. This was more than he had bargained for. He had thought he was just helping some lost girl, but now he realized that this girl, this Luna, was part of something much bigger. She was caught in the middle of a war that was bigger than anything he had ever faced. And somehow she had found her way to his doorstep in the middle of a storm, for a reason he couldn't yet understand. Outside, the wind began to pick up again. The rain started to fall once more, tapping against the windows with a steady rhythm. But inside the cabin, it was quiet. Luna was still recovering, her breath slow but steady. Sam didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. He wasn't going to let her die alone. Luna wasn't just some experiment. She wasn't just a machine. She had made a choice. And Sam wasn't about to turn his back on her. Not when she needed him the most. "Don't worry," Sam said softly, his voice firm with resolve. "I'm not going to let them take you. Not again." Luna gave him a weak smile, the faintest hint of trust in her eyes. It was a small smile, but to Sam it felt like a promise. She wasn't alone anymore, and together, they were going to face whatever came next. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. The forest, once a peaceful refuge for Sam, had become a place of danger. His once quiet life was now overshadowed by a feeling of dread. Sam sat by the window of his cabin, watching the trees swaying in the wind, but his mind was elsewhere. Luna had been resting for hours now, her condition stabilizing, but Sam could feel it. The change in the air, the tension that had settled around them like an invisible weight. The storm had passed, but something far worse was coming. Sam knew, They couldn't stay in the cabin forever. The realization hit him like a cold slap. Luna's past was catching up with her. The people who had created her weren't the type to give up easily. They would come for her. Sam couldn't let that happen, but he also knew that leaving the cabin meant leaving the only place they'd had any chance of peace. Luna stirred, pulling Sam out of his thoughts. Her eyes fluttered open, still clouded with confusion. Sam couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for her. She had already been through so much. She wasn't just running from her creators, she was running from herself, from a life she hadn't asked for. But it was clear now that there was no running from what was coming. "I think we need to go," Sam said, his voice quiet but firm. Luna didn't reply at first. She just stared at him, her expression distant. Then, after a long moment, she nodded. "You're right." They gathered what little they could. Food, water, a few medical supplies, and a rifle Sam had kept hidden for years. He knew it wouldn't be enough, but it was all they had. With Luna by his side, Sam made his way to the back door of the cabin. He opened it slowly, peering into the forest. The woods were dark, the shadows stretching long in the fading light. The storm had left everything wet and slippery, making the ground treacherous. But that wasn't the worst of it. They weren't alone. Sam's hand instinctively went to the rifle slung over his shoulder. His senses were on high alert. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of the trees felt like a warning. They were being hunted. Sam had no doubt about it. The retrieval team, the ones who had sent Luna to kill, were out there searching for her. They had to be. They wouldn't stop until they had her back, and Sam knew they wouldn't hesitate to kill anyone who got in their way. The first sign came as a faint hum in the air. It was barely audible, but Sam's military instincts kicked in. He turned toward the sound, scanning the forest. He knew it wasn't a bird or a creature of the woods. It was something mechanical. A drone. "Stay low," Sam whispered to Luna, who nodded, her body tense with fear. They moved quickly, silently through the trees, keeping close to the ground. Sam's mind raced. Every step they took deeper into the forest felt like a step, closer to their doom. He had fought in wars before, but this was different. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for someone who wasn't even supposed to exist. The drone's hum grew louder, closer. Sam could see its silhouette in the distance, small, hovering in the trees, searching. The searchlight on its underside cut through the darkness, scanning the ground below. Sam froze, pulling Luna down beside him. They crouched low, hiding in the underbrush, trying to blend in with the shadows. The drone moved closer, its light flickering, sweeping across the forest floor. Sam's heart pounded in his chest. If it found them, it wouldn't be just the drone, there would be more, and they would come fast. The drone hovered overhead, its engines buzzing softly as it scanned the area. Sam held his breath, praying it wouldn't detect them. He could feel Luna's breath coming in quick, shallow gasps beside him. She was scared, but she didn't make a sound. They were a team now, and they had to survive together. After what felt like an eternity, the drone moved away, its light fading into the trees. Sam exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. But he knew this was just the beginning. They had escaped the first round, but there was more to come. The retrieval team wasn't just sending drones. They were sending soldiers. They would be looking for signs of life, signs of Luna, and Sam knew they would stop at nothing to find her. They kept moving through the forest, always staying low, always on the lookout. But no matter how careful they were, Sam could feel the danger closing in. Every minute that passed, every step they took, felt like it might be their last. It wasn't long before they heard it again. Footsteps, soft but steady, crunching through the underbrush. Sam's hand went to his rifle, his body tensing in preparation. He turned to Luna, his voice barely a whisper. "They're here." Luna's eyes widened with fear, but there was no time for panic. They had to keep moving. Sam grabbed her arm and pulled her toward a small, narrow trail he had carved through the trees years ago. It was their only chance. If they could make It to the bunker he had hidden in the heart of the forest. They might be able to survive long enough to figure out what to do next. They ran, dodging branches and rocks, their feet slipping in the wet mud. Sam's heart raced as he heard the footsteps behind them grow louder. The soldiers were closing in. Suddenly, the first shot rang out. The bullet whizzed by Sam's ear, missing him by inches. He grabbed Luna and pulled her down, barely avoiding. Another shot. The soldiers had found them. The chase had begun. Sam didn't hesitate. He lifted his rifle, aimed, and fired. The shot hit its target, dropping one of the soldiers to the ground. But there were more. Always more. They kept running, the sound of gunfire echoing through the trees. Sam could hear Luna's breathing, ragged and strained. But she didn't stop. They pushed forward, the path growing narrower, the forest becoming denser, but the soldiers were still behind them, gaining ground with every step. Sam's mind raced as he calculated their chances. They had to make it to the bunker. There was no other option. If they didn't, they would be caught. And Sam knew that once they were caught, there would be no escaping. With a final burst of energy, they reached the hidden entrance to the bunker, just as the soldiers' footsteps thundered behind them. Sam threw open the door, pulling Luna inside, just as another shot rang out, missing them by a fraction. The door slammed shut behind them, sealing them inside the safety of the bunker. But Sam knew this wasn't over. The chase had only just begun. The sun had barely risen when Sam and Luna emerged from the bunker. The forest around them was quiet, eerily so. The events of the night before were still fresh in Sam's mind. The chase, the gunfire, the fear. But now, as he looked out at the mist-covered trees, there was a strange sense of calm. They had made it through the night, but the battle wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Luna stood beside him, her face pale, but determined. Her eyes, once filled with fear, were now sharp, scanning the horizon. She had healed faster than Sam had expected, her body almost mending on its own, but her mind was still reeling. She was still trying to make sense of everything that had happened, everything she had learned about herself, about the world that had made her. "Do you think they're still looking for us?" Luna asked, her voice low. Sam glanced at her, his jaw tightening. "They won't stop. Not until they find you. They'll send more. We need to keep moving." Luna nodded, her eyes distant. She wasn't sure where they would go or what they would do next, but she trusted Sam. He had kept her alive so far, in a world full of dangers. It was more than she could have hoped for. The forest around them was still. The wind had died down, and the only sound was the soft rustling of leaves underfoot as they walked. The path ahead wasn't clear, but Sam knew the way. He had traveled these woods countless times before, and although everything had changed, the forest still felt like home. It was the only place where he could still find peace. "Where are we going?" Luna asked, breaking the silence. Sam hesitated, then looked at her with a hard, determined gaze. "We're going to find a place where you can be safe. A place where they can't get to you. I don't know where that is yet, but we'll figure it out." Luna's expression softened. She had never had someone who cared for her like this before. She wasn't just an experiment, a weapon, or a machine. Sam saw her as something more, and that meant everything to her. They walked for hours, taking care to avoid the main paths and staying off the trails that could be easily tracked. Sam's mind was racing with plans, strategies. He had fought in wars, faced danger countless times, but this was different. This wasn't a battle against a foreign enemy. It was a battle for survival. For a life that had been stolen, for a future that had been taken away. And Sam wasn't going to let that future slip away from Luna without a fight. As they made their way deeper into the forest, Luna spoke again. "You don't have to do this for me. You don't owe me anything." Sam stopped in his tracks, turning to face her. "I don't owe you anything, Luna, but I'm not letting them take you, not after everything you've been through. You deserve more than what they gave you. You deserve a choice." Luna didn't know what to say. She had never been given a choice. She had been created to follow orders, to kill, to obey. But now, she was standing here, with Sam, and for the first time in her life, she had a choice to live, to survive, to be more than what she was created to be. The silence between them stretched on, but it was a comfortable silence. They were no longer just two people running from the past. They were allies, partners in something bigger than themselves. They were fighting for freedom, for hope, and that gave them strength. By the time the sun had fully risen, they had made it to a small clearing. Sam paused to catch his breath, his eyes scanning the area. It was still quiet, but he could sense the danger lurking just beyond the trees. He wasn't sure how much longer they could stay hidden in the forest. The retrieval team would be closing in, and it wouldn't be long before they were found again. "We need to move," Sam said, breaking the silence. Luna nodded, her face set in determination. "Where do we go from here?" Sam hesitated, then looked at her. "There's a place. A sanctuary for people like you. A place where you won't be hunted. But getting there won't be easy." Luna's heart skipped a beat. "You mean, there's somewhere I can go? Somewhere safe?" Sam nodded. "It's not much, but it's better than being out here alone with no one to help. I've heard rumors of a place called Beacon Point. It's a hidden sanctuary, far away from the reach of anyone who might want to hurt you. It's a place where people like you can live in peace." Luna didn't know what to think. A sanctuary? A place where she could live without fear, without being hunted. It almost seemed too good to be true, but Sam's words gave her hope. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a future for her. A future where she wasn't just a weapon, a machine. A future where she could choose her own path. "I'll go," Luna said softly, her voice steady. "I'll go wherever you lead me." Sam gave her a small smile. "Then we'll get there. Together." They set off again, this time with a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was uncertain, and the dangers they faced were far from over. But for the first time in a long time, Sam felt like he was doing something worth fighting for. He wasn't just running anymore. He wasn't just trying to survive. He was fighting for something bigger, something that mattered. He was fighting for Luna. As they continued their journey through the forest, Sam knew they had a long road ahead. The retrieval team wouldn't give up easily, but he also knew that no matter what happened, he would protect Luna. He had made a promise to her, and he would see it through. The new dawn had arrived, and with it a new beginning.